Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hillsborough County Public Safety Coordinating Council, our regular committee meeting. Today is January the 20th of 2023. If we could have Ms. Preza call everyone to order, please.
Ms. Julianne Holt,
Present.
Sheriff Cronister,
Present.
Chief Judge Figueroa,
Present.
Ms. Lopez,
Present.
Ms. Obregon,
Present.
Major Bauman,
Present.
Chief Burkall,
Present.
Chief Daniel, Mr. Bates.
Present.
Can you push your button, sir?
Present.
Mr. Parkinson,
Here.
Mr. Addison Davis,
John Newman for Addison Davis.
Councilman Citro,
Pleasure to be here.
Senator Rousen, Ms. Hammersley,
Present.
Mr. Berenzine,
Present.
Ms. Reyna Pimento, Mr. Proctor,
Here virtually.
Ms. Stewart,
Mary Lou Whaley on behalf of Cindy Stewart.
Ms. Lewis, Judge Conrad,
Hillsborough County Judge Jack Gutman standing in for Judge Conrad.
Councilman Woodstall,
Present.
Ms. Grant.
Present online.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. We have a great turnout today. We have two folks that have joined us. Commissioner, welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Good to see you. And Councilman Citro, good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
In your packet this morning are the approval of the minutes for November 18th of 2022. If you could please review those minutes, and then if we could have an appropriate motion.
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Chief Judge Figueroa, a second by Mr. Bates. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes that are being proposed for passage? Any discussion on the motion that's pending? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign. Ms. Preza, please, under new business, we have the election of new officers.
In accordance with the Public Safety Coordinating Council bylaws, nominations for council chair and vice chair were held at the November 18th full council meeting. It is now time to vote on those nominations. Nominated for chair was Ms. Julie Holt. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Her microphone.
Ms. Preza, can you turn your mic on? Thank you.
We're going to redo. In accordance with the Public Safety Coordinating Council bylaws, nominations for council chair and vice chair were held at the November 18th, 2022 full council meeting. You must now vote on those nominations. Nominated.
Maybe the third time.
Maybe it'll change by now.
I'd be an expert.
Mic check.
Sure, mine's on. My red light's on.
And you can always sit with the chair.
So you can take my seat.
Yes, it is.
Tanya.
Come on over. Have a seat here.
I think we got a replacement. Thank you. They say a third time's the charm, so. In accordance with the Public Safety Coordinating Council bylaws, nomination for council chair and vice chair were held at the November 18, 2022 full council meeting. You must now vote on those nominations. Nominated for chair was Ms. Julie Holt. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nominated for vice chair is Sheriff Chad Cronister. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, Sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for doing it again.
Thank you, sir. This morning we have several presentations. It's important for me to just, at this point in time, remind everyone to keep your mics muted. If you're appearing virtually, especially, so that we don't have any type of background sound. The other thing is we really need to stick to a timeline, and I am not one to do that normally, but today we will have to do that because we have a visitor coming in for a 10 o'clock meeting, and we have to be out of here by 9:30 to allow for appropriate interchange between the two meetings. Secretary Hall from the Department of Juvenile Justice is visiting today, and I certainly welcome any of you to stay behind and meet with the secretary if you haven't met him. He's a very engaging individual, very passionate about his job, but we will have to stay on task today. Our first presentation is by Craig Powell from PowetNet of Tampa. Mr. Powell, sir, if you could just ensure that the microphone is on. And I believe that you and I spoke about a 10-minute presentation.
Oh, dag, not 15. Okay, I'll keep an eye on your face, and I may
It's
even
always
have
going to look pleasant like this.
Okay, I'll do the best I can and talk pretty quickly, because this is exciting times for myself personally and our organization. So I'm going to begin with the end in mind. That is, I'm going to share with you some information on a broader initiative and a specific project, all of which bring home the communication and the importance of community engagement, proactive approach to public safety, and relationship building. That's what I hope you pick out of everything I say in the next 10 to 12 minutes. I have sent out some documents that I believe you have in your packets. So I will not obviously go through and try to read that. I will make a couple points on the first handout that is entitled Raising the Bar. Raising the Bar is the name of a broader initiative that I'm a part of in this community. And the overview of the challenge, and I've stated this again, that Hillsborough, unfortunately, as an opportunity for us, has the highest recidivism rate within the top 10 most populated counties in Florida. And you see there statistics about the disproportionate impact on people of color, particularly African Americans, who in the prison system represent 48% of the prison system. And then just as of the 13th, although you have a question mark there as far as the number of individuals being incarcerated from Hillsborough County, it's 51% of the current prison population from Hillsborough County are black or of African descent. And that's not to suggest that, you know, this is in any way a black thing, but that's just a statistic that I believe we can make some impact on. So, that being said, within just a couple minutes, we're going to move to solutions. How can we reduce the recidivism rate? How can we lessen the impact on individuals of color, particularly within the African American community? Well, at the bottom of that first handout, you see strategic goals. So I've been part of a group who's been meeting over the last 6 to 7 months discussing an approach, a community-based approach to addressing this public safety concern. So you see in 1 through 5, establishing an advisory board, initiating a community-wide fundraising campaign that we're actually in discussions with the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay to partner on, and then to plan at least a statewide, but we're actually evolving into a national conference to be held here in Tampa in April of 2024, which is Second Chance Month. Thirdly, to complete a strategic plan exercise, which is in your packet. I won't go into those details now. And then to begin to execute on that strategic plan, which involves both the front and the back end of the criminal justice system. That is, restorative justice strategies that create alternatives to incarceration and help to reduce recidivism. That's a broader initiative that we're working on that I hope to be able to give you updates on as we go forward. The point is, everyone in this room has to be a part of that. This is not about what PowetNet can do. Certainly, we're a small nonprofit grassroots organization, but we're working with numerous partners. Over the last 6 years that I've been here in this community, I've been meeting with individuals. You know, at least half the group that's here represented. And that's been very important, relationship building, because I believe that the limiting factors, unlike what you may hear mostly about housing and employment, I do not believe those are the limiting factors in our success in mitigating the challenges of individuals being caught up in the criminal justice system. I believe the greatest limitations have to do with individuals' sense of cynicism and the antipathy they may have related to any parts of the system. How do we combat that, as well as how can we overcome the detachment and the hopelessness? That's the greatest challenge. And that takes relationship building, not just a process that people go through. How do you change someone's experience? How do you help them create a vision for themselves that they haven't had before? How do you help someone believe that the trajectory of their life can change? That's the challenge of reentry and any restorative justice. And I believe, and I'm not objective about it, the community has to be in a very influential role, if not the lead role, in making these things happen. And all of that is by way of introduction, because I'm primarily here today to talk to you about a new federal grant from the U.S. Department of Justice that I've been fortunate enough to be in a leadership role for. That is, I've been at it about 4 years. We applied to the federal government, a lot of competition, obviously. We got feedback every year, but this year, they decided to say yes to Operation Empower. And again, many of you around the table helped to provide letters of support for that. And so it's the fiscal agent, that is the organization that was the legal applicant, is the Pinellas Ex-Offender Reentry Coalition in Pinellas County, PERC. So they're the official applicant, but I'm the project director, and that federal project, which is a 3-year, $900,000 project, will involve both Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Now, the next major point is, unlike a lot of organizations who get grants from local, state, or federal sources, who focus and bring all their internal capacity and skills together to make it happen and satisfy the funder so that they can get more funds, PowetNet is not dependent upon our own internal capacity. Now, I'm fortunate to have a very skilled cadre of staff, consultants, and partners, and a couple of which I may be able to introduce before my time's up. But we're depending upon this community, community-wide. I'm saying to you publicly that we intend to have hundreds of partners on this Operation Empower. Not one or two who are providing targeted employment, housing, behavioral health services like many organizations do. We intend to have hundreds of community-based organizations, individuals, and agencies involved in this. That's what reentry is about. It's a community initiative, not a PERC or PowetNet initiative. That's a major take-home message. So you should expect to hear from me, everyone. I'm telling you, we need to work together because there's silos that exist in the social services, but unfortunately, I'm feeling some silos in the criminal justice arena. I want a closer working relationship with the Department of Corrections and our local jails and law enforcement at the state and county level. So your second handout lays out some of the deliverables of Operation Empower. And we just had a meeting with the Department of Justice, and there's some hurdles, some hoops that we've got to accomplish, some deliverables we have to accomplish, but we're in the planning period. We're officially in the planning period, and we don't expect to start services until possibly April or May. So I'm down to a couple minutes, and I'm going to share with you two. I expected a couple others, but obviously to get a grant on a national level. Matter of fact, we're the only organization in Florida who got this grant specifically. There's a couple states that were awarded 2 grants. But Mr. Thomas Harold is one of our faculty, one of our partners who we are going to be operating out of his office, which is up in the university area, which is the second most concentrated area for our returning citizens, secondary to 3610, which is where Mr. Blunt's office is. You all probably know Robert Blunt, who is one of the awardees on this grant. So we're ready to start the planning process. The Central Florida Behavioral Health Network is one of our partners, as well as our evaluator, who unfortunately is not here present. So you'll be hearing from them. Here's a gentleman just walking in as one of our faculty as well, who will be going into the prison. So the bottom line is, it's not about a process. It's not about figuring out, the logistics and movement of people. That's not the limiting factor. It's not a manufacturing process that we're trying to refine. It's how do you change the experience? How do you change the expectations? How do you change the hopes of individuals who've been caught up as a lifestyle, as a culture, as a subculture in crime? And it's through relationship building. It's through collaborations and bringing our best to the table. And we've developed a system, because I'm getting ready to ask you for money, influence, and participation. That's the ask. Money, influence, and participation. So we're in the final stages of locking in a system that I'm working with a global IT company that will allow us to capture all of these hundreds of organizations, most of which nobody in the room has heard of, who are in these communities, storefronts, who want to help. Faith-based, social service, grassroots organizations, neighborhood associations, And we're building a system to capture all of that so that when an individual leaves prison, we don't have to send them somewhere just because that's where the resource is. They can be served in and around the zip code that they're returning to.
Mr.
So
Powell,
that's
let me,
part of
let
what
me,
we want to do.
let me ask you to allow some people to ask some questions because your presentation thus far, I think, is probably going to draw some questions. So if you don't mind, at this point, taking a pause.
I'm finished.
Okay,
that
thank
was
you.
it. That was a
Are there
concluding
questions by
summary.
Are there questions by members of the council about what Mr. Powell is presenting to us today?
Mr. Powell, briefly, and I certainly commend and appreciate and are grateful for your passion and commitment since the day I've met you over 5 years ago.
That's right.
I think you've done a good job of identifying a problem that we face as a community. I'm just not sure if I understand the solution, what the solution is and a mechanism to get there. A lot of conduct, identify, develop, but I don't see an identifiable solution here, a concrete solution that we as a board can grasp and make the recommendation, and I'll certainly defer to Mr. Parkinson here in a moment, of how we attain the goals that you speak of. Mr. Parkinson?
Just a couple comments. I've been observing Mr. Powell's efforts over the years and his most recent effort. And sometimes your goals can seem aspirational versus concrete and operational, which some folks need concrete and operational. So just to kind of reiterate, and based on my knowledge of your proposal to Bureau of Justice Administration, the key components of Operation Empower are 1, your GEM leadership program, 2, comprehensive case management for participants, 3, peer coaching, 4, your reentry information management system, which you call RIMS.
Right.
5, your pre-release risk need responsivity assessments for participants. And then stack certifications obtained pre-release in various industry standards. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. Yeah, I didn't choose to go through those details here since you had the handouts. But yeah, that's the only reason we were funded by the U.S. Department of Justice, because of those specifics and those strategies. But I'm saying to you, those are all secondary to relationship building. It's not just the message. It's not just the resources. It's the messenger and the deliverer of those resources that matter.
The other question I had, or comment I had, is this was a joint application with Pinellas Sex Offender Reentry Coalition, led by Mike Gelazzo, who we've worked with on a number of projects in recent years. Is there a percentage of resources that are going to Pinellas versus Hillsborough, and what is that percentage?
The budget's not broken out like that. We have a budget that reflects our capacity or our needs to serve between 100 to 150 individuals. Now, we all know that most of the individuals returning are going to be coming to Hillsborough County. So most of those resources, there's not a Hillsborough County budget versus a Pinellas budget. It's an organizational budget to serve individuals returning to the 2 counties. And I'm sure that most of our clients are going to be returning to Hillsborough County. That's the only way I can really answer your question. There's staff positions that'll be working with individuals. I'll be going into the prison. That's my specialty. Going in, working with them, recruiting and preparing individuals a year to a year and a half before release. And so PowetNet's on the budget, A. Brown Ministries on the budget. There's a couple training organizations in Pinellas. I've recently met with the Irvin Technical College here and our evaluator, all on the budget to work to make this successful. Unless you have a more specific, right, it's the best way I can respond to it.
That's helpful. And then the other issue is my friends at Bureau of Justice Administration have informed me that they're going to be working with you on developing an action plan in the next 6 months, and that how you operate the program will be dependent on the approval of that action plan. Is that correct?
Yes, we're in the planning period right now. The Vera Institute is a contractor for the Department of Justice who will be meeting with us monthly until we complete a protocol that's, answers all the specific questions. So, yeah, and I'll be able to share that with everybody. It'll be on a publicly available website. We're going to be operating in the light. I'm a very transparent person in terms of budget and strategy. It'll all be open for public review, and I appreciate anyone who's going to be around the table. We have to have a community advisory board that looks at this, oversees this, and gives us feedback. Full community participation.
Mr. Parkinson, you identified several mechanisms that he's hoping to, I guess what I'm trying to understand is a lot of what he speaks of we're already doing. We already have those mechanisms in place. Is this grant to enhance some of these services, or is this to replace those services?
I'm going to let Mr. Powell respond to that, but yes, Sheriff Cronister, you're correct. We have a lot of those resources in place. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Powell, one of your frustrations is that there's a lot of grassroots organizations out in the community that aren't necessarily plugged in because they don't receive funding from a federal source or a state source or a local source, but still have added value to bring to the system. And that's kind of the crux of your program, is to get a lot of those smaller organizations to kind of step up and stand together and be able to interact. And you're not creating a separate system, but one that's going to try and work with some of our existing resources as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Don't want to replace anything. This is not a takeover. This is trying to create a system that engages the full multi-sector collaborations that exist out here, all sectors of our community. And so often our grassroots communities and neighborhoods have been left out. They're very concerned. Sheriff, they're very concerned. I go to these meetings and talk to people who are formerly incarcerated and their families. They want to do something. I went to one of our public events and got over 100 people to volunteer. I'm not sure who does that, who else is doing that, but we know that there's plenty. The sustainability of this project cannot be dependent upon government or any single organization. The sustainability comes from community engagement.
All right, I have a question by our commissioner, please.
Hi, Mr. Powell. And
Hey.
thank you for everything that you do. You said that you need money, and obviously, in most cases, the county is the money.
That's right.
I'm a big believer that in order to fix the problem, you have to really know what the issue is. And I've read through and I'm trying to identify. I personally wouldn't believe for a moment that when you come to arrest rates and incarceration, I personally don't subscribe for a moment that it's our sheriffs that are specifically targeting and increasing that community. I just don't believe that our sheriff's office participates in any targeted arrests. So what would you say is the issue that I understand that statistics can be very emotionally charging, and this is a very concerning statistic to have realized. I just want to understand what you believe is the causation of the 48%. That's what I didn't get out of my notes.
Well, let's relate to it as 51%.
Or, okay, 51%
That's
for
right.
Hillsborough County, so yeah.
Cross out that question mark, because just as of earlier this week, I got updated statistics from the Department of Corrections that 51% of Hillsborough residents are black. Now, what I believe is, because it's the same process, we don't say blacks come back to the community this way and others come back this way. It's not a system issue. It's a cultural issue. I go back to the cynicism. I go back to the hopelessness. I go back to some long-running doubt and distrust that's pervasive, more pervasive in the black community, which I'm from. And our colleagues here, our faculty understand that. That's the relationships I'm talking about. We're going to go in there and help them to understand that the community is with you. It's not just a criminal justice thing. It's not just you got to show up at a sheriff's, rec center and register and okay. It's something different. That's the most powerful part that I'm trying to emphasize, Sheriff. It's not the mechanics, it's not the logistics, it's the relationships that we are going to be very focused on.
Okay. Mr. Powell and Commissioner, something I didn't do previously before we got into new business is I didn't point out that we have subcommittee lists that we need to be reviewing. And one of the things that we have as a subcommittee is a reentry committee, which seems to me to be an appropriate committee to really be someone who's engaging with both Mr. Powell and with the Pinellas County, since we're talking about joint money at this point, and we don't really have a good grasp as a council here of exactly what the plan is. So for me, I would think that it might be appropriate today for us to consider, and as chair, I believe that I can refer this myself, but I would prefer to have a consensus from this council that this ask for both money, influence, and participation be referred at this time to the Reentry Committee, which is chaired by our sheriff and has significant membership on it. And I'm sure that the sheriff would accept other people if they wish to be involved. But we have members of service providers, DOC, State Attorney's Office, Neighborhood Watch, the Clerk's Office, the courts, and even the legislature, which we could obviously engage, as well as Mr. Parkinson, who is someone that both the Board of County Commission and this council rely on tremendously in obtaining not only historical information, but real-time information also. So that would be what I would think we should do. And if the record could also reflect that Ms. Yvetlos is present today. And I'm not trying to short-circuit a conversation, but it seems to me that there really needs to be a lot more in-depth review, not only of the grant, of course, which I've seen and Mr. Parkinson has seen, but not everyone else has seen. So that would be my suggestion, my thoughts. If anyone would feel comfortable with making an appropriate motion, I would suggest that it should not be the sheriff, since he is the chair of that committee.
I make the motion to refer this to the reentry committee.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Bates, a second by Councilman Citro and State Attorney Lopez. Anyone wish to discuss the motion any further? Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose the motion? Okay, thank you. Mr. Powell, I think it's going to be important for you, and I'm sure that the sheriff's staff and he will reach out to you, but I think it's going to be important that we find a way to engage the Pinellas County partners also in whatever meeting initially occurs, because I'm sure one of the first things that the sheriff is going to do is be in a fact-finding mission. So I would make that suggestion to you. I know that time is of the essence to you, and I'm sure that the sheriff's staff will reach out to you shortly. My only side comment of this is, and you and I have spoken about this privately, the April 2024 convention day is a little aggressive in my mind, because having been involved with the West Palm Beach Summit, it took 2 years for them to plan that. And that's just, in case I'm not available for the meeting, I was actually involved in the West Palm Beach reentry, and that took 2 years to put together. I think Major Bowman also had some involvement. So I would just bring that to your attention. There is sources down in West Palm Beach that we can talk to about how much effort goes into something such as that. All right, Mr. Powell, thank you to you and to everyone else that appeared here today. I appreciate it very much. Like everyone else has said, we all know that reentry into the community and into society is a significant challenge and issue, and something that we should embrace and that we should work on. There is no doubt about that. I think it's going to be a matter of how can we do something in a consolidated fashion that really does meet the needs of the reentry citizens that are coming back here.
Yeah,
so thank you very much.
I've broadened it to restorative justice. I can no longer only face or focus on people coming back. We've got to make sure we reduce the prison population by helping create alternatives. And you have a second subcommittee who's focused on alternatives to incarceration. That's what all this initiative is about.
I'll try not to mix two people, two committees at one time, because
That's okay.
but there's a lot of us that are on both committees, so I think you're good to go on that.
That's right.
And so thank you very much. And then if we could at this time, then if you could glance at the committee list, I think that we have them accurate at this point in time, but if you do need any changes made, I think we picked up our councilman, I think we picked out our commissioner. I know our state attorney made some changes in terms of her representatives or designees, and just because you select a designee doesn't mean that you should not or could not attend the meetings that are called in place, so please don't feel that there's any restriction on that. There is nothing in the bylaws as it relates to that aspect of life. And then at this point then, we would be prepared to move to Rehabilitation Enables Dreams. Mr. Parkinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually a request from Sheriff Chronister. I believe he interacted with the Rehabilitation Enables Dream organization sometime in the summer or early fall. He had opined that it might be a good idea for them to give an overall presentation of their work and project model. We've subsequently reached out to them, and today we have their Executive Director, David Lee Windecher, I hope I said that correct, and their RED Program Director, Zeus Luby, on virtually to talk a little bit about their program to help citizens who are returning to the community from jail and prison. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to David and Zeus. Can you hear us?
We can. Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us. Sheriff Chronister, it's good to see you, and thank you for inviting us to discuss our restorative justice programming, our impact on our community, and any possible alignments with Hillsborough County as it relates to alternatives to incarceration. You guys heard, my name is David Lee Windecher. I'm the Executive Director of the organization and founder. With us today is also Zeus Luby. He's the Director of Programming who oversees all of our evidence-based curriculums in alignment with the District Attorney's offices here in Georgia. In order to be brief and to provide the best content possible to help you all with the process that you will have after this, what I want to do is I want to give you a little bit of my background, my personal journey, and what inspired us to create this program. And then I want to transition into telling you a little bit about the organization. And from there, I want to transition over to Zeus, we're going to have a slide up that's going to explain the curriculum, which I'm very encouraged by hearing Mr. Powell's presentation, because we have already created a lot of the systems that he is suggesting would be impactful, which I agree that they would be. We can also answer some of the questions that Sheriff Chronister had, and also the Commissioner. We can address some of those things as well with regards to in-depth programming. So my journey started in the criminal justice system at age 11. I was born into poverty. I'm the son of Argentinian parents, and I was arrested for retail theft. It was in January of 1990, and at that point we were beginning the height of the Get Tough on Crime movement. The federal crime bill was being proposed, and so I went before a juvenile judge in Miami-Dade County, and I was adjudicated delinquent. I was placed on probation. I was asked to do theft deterrent programs, community service hours, and check in with the court every single month. The school to prison pipeline term that many of us have heard was something that I experienced myself personally. So as I'm doing this program, I'm still struggling through my community because we are extremely impoverished. I go to school. I'm at John F. Kennedy Middle School in North Miami Beach. And I'm having a problem because I don't look like everybody else, and the gangs decided that they wanted to assault me. So right around that time, I witnessed a murder, and I felt like the constant jumping and assaults that I was experiencing, I needed some protection. So I initiated into a criminal street gang, and I became a member of the Latin Kings at age 14. From 14 to 16, I stayed in school. However, the compulsory education system was failing me in the sense that some of the mathematics that I had learned in Argentina in 5th grade, for example, I was being taught again in 9th grade in America, and they were telling me that I was a student at risk, but really I wasn't being stimulated. So I dropped out at 16 when there was no legal consequence to my parents, and I got really deep into trying to find opportunities, economic opportunities. I started selling drugs. Between the ages of 11 and 19 in totality, I ended up with 13 arrests, 8 months incarcerated. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, and this is all in trying to survive this community. Well, in July of 1996, I was charged under a direct file for aggravated battery, and I was denied bond. I was sitting in the Miami-Dade County Pretrial Detention Center at age 16, and this is when I started observing some of the mistakes that we're making in the criminal justice system as it relates to putting adolescent folks with grown men and witnessing things like rape, assaults, very unfortunate experiences in the criminal justice system that created some trauma that I had to heal from and get therapy to overcome. But all of those things are what motivated me to want to become an attorney and get involved in restorative justice and criminal justice reform. Fast forward 16 years, there's an autobiography that I put out that I can send to everybody there so that you guys can understand the depth of the challenges of climbing the social rungs. But 48 schools out of 50 that I applied to, law schools, turned me down due to my criminal record. 2 of them vetted me further, and 1 gave me a chance. That one that gave me a chance was John Marshall here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I matriculated in August of 2009. I graduated in May of 2012. During that span of 3 years, I mentored with an individual named Manny Aurora, high-profile attorney working at the highest level of the superior courts here. So he took me under his wing. He saw it as someone that needed help because of my lack to access to resource given my background. And after a year of mentoring, he referred me to the district attorney's office in DeKalb County, Georgia, which is a metro Atlanta county. There, I'm being supervised by an individual named Darius Patillo, who became the first black district attorney in Henry County here in Georgia, a conservative environment, if you will. And this individual trained me to the point where I had several trials under my belt. Most attorneys don't have trials in their careers. I had more trials under my belt before I was even at a law school. The district attorney's office vouched for me. After they vouched for me, I sat for the bar in Georgia and I passed. However, for me personally, my rehabilitative circle was incomplete. I felt that I needed to make the wrongs that I committed in Florida right, so I applied for the Florida bar. I sat successfully for the Florida bar. However, due to my criminal history, there was some more red tape and some further vetting. After about 1.5 years of that process and an investigative hearing with the Florida Board of Bar Examiners, I was allowed to swear in. I flew into Miami-Dade County in the same courthouse that I faced 15 years in prison. I swore in before that court to become a licensed attorney in the state of Florida. I thought that that moment would remove the pain of the despair, of the poverty, of all the trauma that I had gone through. But instead of removing the pain and giving me peace, that moment gave me purpose, and it inspired me to focus on restorative justice, to help lift others onto higher ground by providing them access to educational components, access to community resources, and workforce placement opportunities. Now, in Georgia, along with many other states in the country, criminal justice reform began to catch fire around 2011, 2012. Here specifically, along with other entities, we formed a special counsel in Georgia that was investigating how to reduce recidivism, how to advance public safety issues, and how to be more fiscally responsible with taxpayer funding. So that's how our program came about. In 2015, we started Rehabilitation Enables Dreams, which is also known as RED. Obviously, it was my nickname when I was a gang member for obvious reasons. And the program started in DeKalb County because they gave me a chance when I was in law school. And we started implementing social, civic, and financial digital literacy components, meaning that we were focused on these individuals' ability to advance their literacy rates so that way we can reintegrate them into society in an effective and efficient way. We've now, to date, have partnered with 2 separate district attorneys' offices, the 2 largest volume jurisdictions in the metro Atlanta area, Gwinnett County and DeKalb County. We have graduated over 150 graduates of our program, so we have 150 alumni. Out of the 150 people that we have graduated, a total of 8 have reoffended. Our demographic is 17 to 28 years old, and that forms the largest base of people committing crimes, and we're talking about nonviolent crimes. If you're committing rapes, arsons, murders, we're not looking to divert you. We're talking about people who are born with certain traumas, with poverty, with wealth gaps, with academic deficiencies, people committing theft offenses, drug offenses, people struggling through those kind of things. So we focus on those type of charges. Now, our program has been extremely successful because we have taken people who are justice impacted. Our board is made up of 15 individuals. Half of our board has some history with the criminal justice system. In totality, we have about 40 years of incarceration total. And so we understand what the individual charged with an offense needs. We understand what their families need. We understand what victims need. We understand what victims want to understand will happen if someone is diverted to prevent causing another victim, which incentivizes them and motivates them to be involved in this type of a program. And not only we understand that, but we understand what it takes to transition someone from a tax burden to a taxpayer, because we've all been through it ourselves. Now, before we go into the presentation of the curriculum, I want to share with you all that we are backed by private sector organizations. We don't take state money, we don't take federal money. There's a multitude of reasons for that. Primarily the conditions that we just simply don't agree with our experience in the criminal justice system. Sometimes some conditions are irrelevant to the end goal, which the end goal is advancing public safety, reducing crime, reducing recidivism. So everything we've done is evidence-based. We've worked with organizations like the Carl Vinson Institute, the Special Counsel on Criminal Justice Reform, the Department of Justice, to get data to understand how to create an evidence-based curriculum that would address the root causes of these issues, the traumas that people experience, the personal circumstances that need to be addressed in order to reintegrate them back into our community. So what we do to start our program, is it possible for us to put up our slide? Thank you so much. The only part of this slide that I'm going to address is month 1, to give you an idea of how involved and how in depth and how no second guessing has happened here. Everything we've done is through research data, scientific information, everything is evidence-based. So our orientation, when we bring in our participants, there's a criteria that we select for our entire program, which is a 12-month program. This is for people who need strong intervention, right? Sheriff Cronester and I and a local business owner have discussed a pilot that's about a portion of this, which we'll talk after Zeus presents the overall curriculum. So the reason our program is successful is because what we do at orientation is we implement, and everything is digital. Everything we do is digital with human components. So what we do is we create a level of service intake form that requires our students to answer specific questions that help us understand what type of traumas they may have experienced. What is causing them to have criminogenic behaviors. And this allows us to create an accurate profile to create a targeted approach at resolving that individual's specific needs. Zeus then does a personal assessment based on the level of service intake for peer mentoring matching, which he'll talk about. Another thing that we do at orientation is we execute an NNR. An NNR is an emotional intelligence evaluation, and this is crucial because we've learned that emotional intelligence, advancing your EQ, is conducive to advancing social mobility opportunities. So we implement the LSI to understand the individual, and then we implement the NNR to understand what propensities they may have for criminogenic behavior so we can reach the root cause of those issues and address them while the pendency of the program is ongoing, which is 12 months. And with that, I'm going to transition over to Zeus so he can explain to you all exactly how our program works.
Thank you guys for having us today. I'll give you a brief overview of our program, the mechanics, the layout. So as David mentioned, it's a 12-month program. Month 1 is personal assessments, LSI, NNR. Month 2, we focus on the mentor-mentee matchups and GEDs. Now, peer mentoring is critical for participants in need of strong intervention. To have that mentor alongside them for the duration of their journey is imperative. GEDs, we require that each participant have bare minimum a GED. They have a high school diploma, that's fine, but everybody has to get their GED before they graduate. Month 3, emotional intelligence. Module 1, this goes into helping them understand why they make the decisions they make based on how they feel, understanding that emotion to decision bridge. Month 4, emotional intelligence module 2, this helps them understand how to change course when they're on a negative emotional or psychological path, so they can take control of themselves and make better decisions moving forward. Month 5 is know your rights. This focuses on helping them understand their civil rights. It also helps them to learn how to better interact with law enforcement agents. It helps them understand that law enforcement agents are humans, are people too, that have families that they want to come home to. We host a roundtable discussion, a panel discussion of law enforcement agents, district attorneys, lawyers, correctional officers, police officers, with our participants so they can have candid discussions, and it's a very humanizing experience. So they understand that law enforcement agents are by and large there to help keep the community safe. Your voice matters. This focuses on educating them on their voting rights. Now, all participants, when they graduate, they become registered voters so they can contribute to the political process. Month 7 is substance use disorder. This helps them understand the mechanics, the look, the feel, the sound of substance use disorder, and helps them understand if they are in that space and how to reach out for help if they find themselves in that position. Month 8 is health and fitness. This helps them understand the mind to body connection, how a healthy diet, healthy lifestyle can contribute to making better decisions. Month 9 is finance fundamentals. This goes over the basics of finances. All participants are offered an opportunity to open up a bank account if they don't already have one. Month 10 is entrepreneurship. This helps them understand the fundamentals of business, how to start a business, what type of business they would like to start. Month 11 is career readiness and workforce placement. Now, although this is on month 11, we help them become gainfully employed shortly after orientation. We help them find jobs. We connect them with our employment partners, organizations like Blue Grace, organizations like Georgia Power. The career readiness module also helps them understand how to fill out applications, how to create resumes, how to dress during interviews, how to interview successfully. In month 12, we go into record restriction. And David will go deeper into that.
Record restriction is a term used in Georgia for expungements that's used in Florida. And the reason record restriction is so important is because irrefutable data shows that barriers to employment, safe and adequate housing, occupational licensing, academic opportunity are the reason recidivism rates are so high in many states in our country. So what we do is when they complete the program, we get their case dismissed, their record is restricted, and their case file is sealed. That way there is no stigma that follows them into the workforce or into their community. They're trained and ready to be taxpayers and contributing members of their society. And as I mentioned to you, we've graduated over 100 people and only 8 have recidivated. We keep a check on their criminal histories to see if any of them recidivate. That's how every year we always check to see who's reoffending. We've only had 8 people reoffend. If anybody would be interested in talking to our partners, and our partners specifically are the police departments, the sheriff's offices, the district attorney's offices, they can help you guys understand the proof of concept that we have created about restorative justice programming and alternatives to incarceration. We've created such a strong proof of concept that you see we have some very influential partners, from Google to Microsoft to the NFL to the Atlanta Falcons to the Arthur Blank Foundation, Blue Grace, which is a local company there in Hillsborough County. They're our hiring partner of ours. The CEO, Bobby Harris, has hired some of our folks, and this is how this relationship came about. Now, the interesting thing to me about you guys being in Hillsborough is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are there. And the reason I have this back here is this is a check from the NFL Foundation. The NFL Foundation has started a social justice initiative called Inspire Change. And if you go to their website, you'll see that our program is the recipient of the Changemaker Award for last year. We are in a partnership with them, and that's because our program actually works. With regards to starting something local there in Hillsborough, what we have discussed, and this was a spitball brainstorming session that I had with Sheriff Cronister and CEO Bobby Harris, and we talked about doing some sort of a pilot. The pilot would look something like doing the orientation with an LSI and an NNR to understand the individuals that we would be servicing. Then we would do EQ1, EQ2 modules, along with the Know Your Rights, the Your Voice Matters, and the Career Workforce Placement. We also discussed having, that would be a 6-month program, and with some overlap as it relates to employment training and internship, either with Blue Grace or other local companies that will be interested in hiring some of the folks. Now, with regards to our overall program that has very strong interventions, the program has 3 requirements. The requirements are that it's pre-adjudication, that there's no cost to the individual, and that their record is restricted and sealed. And I share that because a lot of the folks that we started doing work with initially wanted to be post-adjudication. And we understand the stress of that. Some Someone may be better suited with some supervisory efforts from probation. However, what we have learned is for nonviolent offenders, pre-adjudication and no probation supervision is conducive to their success. And I share those three things because I want you guys to know exactly how our program works as it relates to the 12 months. The pilot that we talked about installing in Hillsborough would be a version of our program that we would probably start with certain nonviolent offenders, people committing theft crimes, people committing drug offenses, and we would start with some small group of 10 so that we can create a proof of concept that this is in fact scalable. Now, to answer, Sheriff Cronister had a question about the depth of the programming that Mr. Powell was presenting. This is it. This is it right here. This is all evidence-based. Everything we do here has been created by folks that are competent, effective in this space. It has worked for quite a long time because of the touch points that we have. We have the human component, we have the digital component. In our partnership with Google, our software allows us to trace all of their progress. We can have up to 2 million people on our platform without it ever crashing. And it collects all of the data, the pre-test example versus the post-test example as it relates to that specific subject matter to understand how they're advancing, how quickly they're advancing, and how their literacy rate is helping them progress out of the criminal justice system. And so this in-depth type of programming is what will solve the issue of public safety problems that we're having with high recidivism rates. And then to speak to the Commissioner's question or suggestion about it not being racially charged, I do agree with that. I think that the history of certain environments has shown that certain environments are struggling with different traumas, right? The poverty, the wealth gap, the substance use disorders in those communities is the reason. The lack of effective, proper compulsory education systems and curriculums. It's the reason why. It's not a targeted racial thing. What happens is that certain communities are struggling with certain things like poverty, IPV, SUD, and that's why you're seeing that type of demographic rate in the criminal justice system. With that said, I'd love to open it up to questions if there are any. And the one suggestion that I would make is that you guys consider talking to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers about this, because I really believe that they would be highly interested in doing something rinse repeat like we're doing here in Atlanta.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure Mr. Parkinson's about ready to say what I say. The NFL Buccaneers are already tremendous partners in the area of restorative justice, and particularly in the juvenile justice area. They're actively involved with our early reporting center. They're actively involved with the Safe and Sound Hillsborough. They've taken a significant interest in our juvenile population. And so obviously, I understand the entire social justice aspect of this. We are short on time. You're about to lose our chief judge, and you're about to lose your chair in a minute. I have a funeral that I need to go to this morning at 10 o'clock. But are there any questions, number one? And then number two, is this something that you all believe should be referred, whether it be to the same committee, the reentry committee, or whether it be to the alternatives to incarceration committee? Those are alternatives that exist, because obviously what we just got was an overview that's very, very high in nature, and I'm sure we'd be interested in gaining more information. Ms. Lewis.
Okay. I think this needs to be referred, because there is a lot of concerns that I have with this, because they're in the state of Georgia and we're in Florida. We all know felons can't have the right to vote. Certain licenses they're not going to be able to get. And you know, the level background, the level of getting their records sealed, certain housing they're not going to be able to get to. You know, have the advantage of filling out an application because of their background. So I think this definitely needs to be explored a whole lot deeper, because he's talking about Georgia, we're talking about the state of Florida, who, I'm gonna stop right there. Thank you.
Well, and the only thing I would add is our sealing and expungement statute is it's something that we would have to compare in terms of record restrictions, so I would just add that. Thoughts and comments? about what we should do. We have one suggestion, Mr. Parkinson.
No, I agree with Ms. Lewis. We should probably refer it over to Sheriff Cronister's committee. Obviously, there's some significant challenges between Florida and Georgia. But on a positive note, and Sheriff Cronister pointed these out when he referred them for this presentation, they have developed a lot of good evidence-based practices that have a lot of efficacy, not just for Georgia, not just for Florida, but across the board. But the other factor is they're using some EBPs that we've already implemented here. For instance, they're using the LSI, the level of service tool, which Chief Judge Figueroa and his staff are using in all of our specialty courts. So there's a lot of transference and counter-transference that could happen pretty easily with a program like this. I think the biggest factor is that the program they want to implement is on the pre-adjudication, pre-dispo side versus the post-adjudication side. That's probably the dissonance between what Mr. Powell presented and what David presented, but I certainly think this has some efficacy for our community. The other thing that I was really impressed when I looked at their work is they have gone out of their way to get the private sector to step up and provide resources and funding, and that's something that we've had some challenges here with. And they might be able to bring something new to the table in terms of engaging some of the private sector to step up, so.
Sheriff Cronister, would you be willing to accept this secondary referral?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
So now you'll be working 27 hours a day instead of 24, okay? I'm good. Does anyone object to that? Does anyone think that we need a formal motion, or because these presentations are so well tied in that we agree that they should go to the same committee? Okay, by your silence, I will tell you that that's acquiescence. We have one last presentation. I am going to pass the gavel over to our sheriff, and thank you all very much. Appreciate everybody trying to stay on task. You'll be hearing from us again. Thank you for the great work that you're doing up there in Georgia, though, because I know that's another tough state with some of the challenges that y'all have. So thank you all very much for the work you've done.
Thank you kindly for having us, and we look forward to furthering the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for agreeing to spearhead these efforts for another year. We sure are extremely grateful. The third presentation will be from the Hillsborough Forensic Impact Team Expansion, or H-FITE Project DCF Reinvestment Grant Update. Ms. Debbie McGinty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we put up the presentation by chance? While she's setting that up. Hi, I'm Deb McGinty. I work with Rob Parkinson here at Hillsborough County in their Criminal Justice Unit. We're here to present an update. Many of you are very familiar with the Hillsborough Forensic Impact Team Expansion, which is part of the problem-solving courts here in Circuit 13. It's become a critical part of that continuum, I think. Judge is nodding vigorously, so that's a very good sign. What's very unique about the H-FITE program is it was initiated 2.5 years ago. We have about 6 to 8 months left of funding, so to speak. One of the reasons that we're here is we're looking for some support to try to continue the efforts that have been, the outcomes that have been gained in that program. Specifically, this problem-solving court serves defendants who are presenting with significant mental health and substance use concerns. What's very unique about these persons is that they have been restored to competency per Florida Statute 916. Our Grace Point, who is our service provider, many of you are aware of them. They work with the most acute mental health episodes. Oftentimes, law enforcement brings clients in there. That may be their entry to justice system. It also may just be they're in the community. When they go on the radar, so to speak, for this court, what we do with them, we don't have the presentation up, I'm sorry. I think I'm just gonna go by the
Perhaps
handout.
if you remind folks that they have hard copies of the presentation in
Yes.
front of them and they
So
can
if you can
follow
follow
along
along with me, I apologize. You provided that. So still on the first slide there. What's very unique about these folks as well is that they are high risk. They are very high risk for recidivism. And so what we do is we individualize care for them and interventions for them. The goals and of all the programs that we support here at Hillsborough County Criminal Justice Unit, as well as the presenters before us and every intervention, is, of course, to reduce that recidivism risk, to increase the public safety for everyone, and to stabilize the individual's excuse me, behavioral health concerns, as well as employ the problem-solving court strategies. I did provide on this slide a direct quote that just came hot off the presses from the Circuit 13 courts out of their newly published handbook, Team Court Handbook, and that is identify and redirect defendants with major mental health disorders from the traditional criminal justice system through the use of therapeutic dockets, multidisciplinary teams, and non-adversarial approach. The defining feature of team court is the highly individualized nature of the treatment and supervision plans for each participant. So the next page, the program components, they're very straightforward. A couple of years ago, when this opportunity to provide this program emerged, we reconfigured some components of the existing problem-solving courts that we were supporting. One of them was the mental health court navigator position. And so that position is a person that interacts with every single defendant who is potentially eligible for this court. And what happens there is they do preliminary screening. I won't get into all the tools, but as everyone here says, this community embraces evidence-based tools. And so it's very, very important up front to identify the risk, need, responsivity factors that are involved with each and every defendant that is being considered. What happens after that determination has been made is the public defender's office as well as the state attorney's office get together and determine whether or not an actual contract for service can be provided to them. And if that occurs, they meet with Grace Point, who's the service provider, and they determine whether that person is amenable to the interventions that are available to them. The very next slide. The key outcomes we have experienced to date, and I need to qualify this a little bit because we are talking about the time that they've spent in the program. We're not talking about what's going to happen in the future, but we do think it's very significant. We're exceeding our goals, and these are state goals that come out of the Department of Children and Families, adopted from federal outcomes. And the first one that we think is very significant is that 84% of the program participants have not recidivated while in the program. The second one is that 82% were able to be stably housed within 90 days of the program start. The next one is 100% of employable clients or participants were employed within 180 days of their program start. About 30 to 35% of these participants are employable, and what that means is the rest of them have such a significant disability or concern that they probably will be on Social Security or something else that assists them throughout the rest of their lives to sustain them. The one that I think is most significant that we've experienced to date is our discharge rate, our successful discharge rate, and that is 83%. What does success look like for these folks? What it means is they're meeting their case plan goals, which means, again, they're not recidivating. They are attending treatment modalities that are available. They are following the court's orders and guidance, and then eventually able to graduate once the service provider and the courts come together and say, yes, we think they're ready to go to the next level. And the next slide would be, these are our outputs that we've experienced to date. 62 clients have been served since October of 2020. We have currently 27 participating clients. The average time from referral to enrollment is approximately 1 month. We have had 20 graduates. We have 77.7% of the program participants are on psychotropic medication. 62.9% are receiving individualized therapy, and 55% are receiving group therapy. Group therapy is something that was added approximately 10 or 11 months ago. The reason for that is we were finding that clients were not progressing through the program and needed more individualized service and supports for addressing their addictions. And so, as I understand it, in December, their first cohort of graduates occurred from that group counseling aspect of the program. We're looking forward to seeing how their successes are sustained in the future. A couple of pieces of successful snippets from the program I wanted to point out. One that indicates the engagement that's occurring for many of the clients is that in year 2 of quarter 2, which was last year, an H-FITE team therapist successfully de-escalated 4 crisis calls from clients who were having suicidal or homicidal ideations, and the team was able to coordinate more frequent services and safety assessments. So they do provide, this team provides a very critical safety net out in the community for these participants. Another one is an example of team intervention, which is a core of this program as well, working with the state attorney and public defender's office. And I believe this one has Marie Marino written all over it. Many of you know who she is. She gets very involved. Many times the attorneys do get a bond with these clients when they're going through because they believe that the benefits are there for them to participate in this program. There was a young man who had very significant concerns and basically was giving up. And Marie had that connection with him. So she paired up with Grace Point's therapist and went out, hit the streets to find him and help him and intervene and get him back in the program. And we're very happy to report that he currently is working at Home Depot, his first job ever. He's progressed to management there, which we think is very significant. The judge had commended him, I think, in open court, and I'm sure remembers quite well who this person is. Exercised some opportunities for him to show that there was trust building in his progress, and he went from having to go to court every month to every 6 weeks, which again is very significant and reinforcing for them. We have another one that's an example of an employment success. It's a graduation for a client who actually is working at a restaurant, also had not had success in employment previously, and was very excited about the promotion and the confidence his management had in him. The client graduated the program the past August, and evidently, Judge, she offered to provide you with some barbecued ribs. So again, the bonds and the appreciation that builds there, you know, the recognition of the opportunity, I think, is very significant. And I know Judge could probably provide many, many examples of that. We wanted to stay brief today because, again, we presented this program before, but we do believe we have an opportunity coming up to sustain the program. And in the spring of every other year, the state of Florida does provide a reinvestment grant opportunity, which is what this program was built upon. One key factor with that program is it does require a match, but this community has always come up with that in in-kind supports and with the court supports and continuation. So we are looking to get together with a team of folks, decision makers, as well as obviously folks that are internal to the system, to write a proposal to go ahead and see if we can continue that program.
Mr. Parkinson.
Yes, and I'll be brief. Thank you, Ms. McGinty, for that presentation. As many of you are aware, under Chapter 394 of the Baker Act, there exists the Criminal Justice and Behavioral Health Reinvestment Act and Grant Program, and that is what this program is funded under. We are coming to the end of the 3-year grant period in July, and the stakeholders want to reapply for an expansion and enhancement grant. to basically build on what Chief Judge Figueroa and the PD and the State Attorney's Office has created and get us another 3 years of funding. But to do that, under statute, we have to have the support of the Public Safety Coordinating Council. And they also have to agree, just as you have in the past, to act in an advisory capacity. So that might mean regular reports like Ms. McGinty gives us, and also engaging in any needed problem solving, which this group has always stepped up for. So at this juncture, I think Ms. McGinty is just looking for a motion and passage of resolution to support a follow-up DCF Reinvestment Act grant application.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Judge?
Of course, I'm very familiar with this program as the presiding judge of our mental health court. And it is a team effort in that court with the state attorney, the public defender, law enforcement, the clerk, everybody. And our court, it's the most rewarding work I've done in my 29 years on the bench. It is amazing to see the changes that we make in people's lives in our adult mental health court and our juvenile mental health court. And H-FITE has been really one of the cornerstones that we've relied on. So I would strongly ask this body to please support this effort. Let's continue to do the good work we're doing and allow H-FITE to continue the good work they're doing. And I'm very, very appreciative of the hard work from everybody on this court. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief
And
Judge.
I apologize, I've got to leave shortly. I've got mental health court at 10 o'clock. So I'm a working Chief Judge. So.
Thank you, Chief Judge. Happy New Year. Someone want to make a motion? Commissioner?
Oh, no.
Motion to continue support?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Ms. McGinty, Mr. Parkinson, all our criminal justice partners, Chief Judge, State Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, with mental health being one of the biggest challenges that our community face. Thank you for all your effort. Thank you for what you continue to do. Great, great success.
Excuse me, Mr. Cronister.
Yes.
Sheriff Cronister. Who made the motion, please?
Patrick Barentine, Department of Corrections.
Thank you.
Final item on the agenda, Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary Eric Hall's visit to Hillsborough County. Mr. Parkinson, is there some comments you'd like to make?
Absolutely. I just wanted to remind and invite PSCC members that Secretary Hall will be here at 10 o'clock. He'll be doing a presentation on his strategic vision for juvenile justice. Our Juvenile Justice Board will also be imparting some of our priorities here locally to him. And you are all invited to participate and attend. And again, that begins at 10 a.m. in this very room.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. Other business that needs to be discussed? Public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Barring none, that is, we will officially, if I could have a motion to adjourn. So carried. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for your efforts.